The first sign wasn't the impact. It was the scream in the static. High above the frost-hardened pines of Kamchatka, an abandoned Terran relay station crackled back to life. Deep in the forest below, Marcus Vance stood still as stone, snow rising past his boots, one hand wrapped around the grip of his bolt-action rifle. The silence of the wilderness shattered as his radio belt squealed. A voice, fractured and foreign, spilled through. "Contact! Primary scout down! Terran anomaly!" The signal died in a hiss. Then silence again. Not the peaceful kind, the kind before a storm. Marcus's eyes narrowed. He recognized the dialect, ARK military standard, garbled through a distortion field. They were here. Again. Breaching the accord. Testing Earth's leash like every other arrogant Xeno in the galaxy. He exhaled slow. Not out of fear. Out of habit. Vance wasn't a soldier anymore, not officially. The brass made sure of that after Jakarta, after he disobeyed protocol and evacuated civilians instead of following retreat orders. The tribunal called him reckless. Some off-world diplomats labeled him a regression to Terran savagery. They never mentioned the 93 lives he saved. Now, the war hero they once paraded through embassies lived off-grid, buried in wilderness that hadn't seen cities in centuries. The last man Earth wanted to acknowledge. And the only one who knew how to kill in forests older than history. He should have ignored the signal. Let some orbital drone sweep it up. But the pines whispered. They're back. By midday, Marcus found the crater. A pod, sleek, black, ARK scout class, was buried in a ring of burned moss and fractured bark. Around it, clawed footprints and heat warping told the story of disembarkment. No sign of the team. But he felt them. Watching. He slid down the ravine on instinct, hugging shadows. His coat, canvas, stitched with chameleon fiber, merged with the bark. No noise. No scent. Just a stillness honed over years in war zones that didn't exist on maps. He saw them first through binoculars. 3 figures cloaked in refractive gear, half visible as shifting distortions amid the canopy. ARK scouts, slim, four-limbed, luminous skin beneath biosuits. They moved like predators who had never been hunted. They laughed in clicks and harsh syllables. One dropped a Terran helmet, painted with jungle unit insignia, Marcus's own regiment. Desecration. They were cataloging human battle relics like safari trophies. That was their mistake. Night fell fast in the Kamchatka basin. Mist slithered between pines. The ARK set up camp near the river's edge, unfurling a microdome of shimmering light. But they didn't see the figure moving with the mist. Marcus had already mapped their patrol paths, supply drops, sensor nodes. He marked pressure gaps in their defense grid. He knew the way they'd sleep, lightly, rotated, with one unit awake but distracted by monitoring drones. He also knew how ARK died. At 2:14, a scout left the dome perimeter to relieve himself. At 2:19, he didn't return. When Vras, unit leader, found his soldier, the alien's lifeless body was suspended from a tree, rope cut from native vine, armor cracked through the thorax. A Terran combat knife pinned a note to the corpse's chest. It was written in burned glyphs. "Welcome to Earth." The second scout panicked. He began firing plasma bursts into the trees, shouting about shadows, ghosts, and something he called the Earthborn Wraith. Vras silenced him with a backhand. "Control your fear," he hissed. "They are remnants. Myth-making primitives. Nothing more." But even as he said it, he glanced at the forest, uneasy. Marcus watched them from 30 feet up, body pressed to the crook of a pine, breath shallow. They were afraid now, not of death, but of what it meant to die here. Good. He wanted fear to spread, like rot in the bone. He remembered his last squad. How they burned in an off-world jungle when the ARK bombed a no target zone, and claimed it was a calibration error. He'd sent their names to the Galactic Tribunal. They sent back automated condolences. Now, those same bastards were camping on Earth's soil. And wearing his dead friend's tags. He touched his dog tag once, a silent vow. then slid down the tree like a phantom. Before sunrise, one more scout went missing. By dawn, only Vras remained, pacing outside the dome with a plasma pike drawn. The forest was silent. But the wind was not. On it wrote a message, not words, but presence. Predators smell weakness. And Marcus Vance had returned to his element. Vras crouched over the mutilated body, his eyes, translucent and cold, locked on the vine-twisted tree above. The lifeless scout swayed like a grotesque fruit, armored torso peeled open in a precise, surgical breach. No scorch marks. No pulse signature. Only clean, deliberate violence. He activated his wrist console. Third scout lost. Tactical anomaly confirmed. Initiating red tier protocol. The console chirped in rejection. No uplink. No signal. No help. The Terran wilderness had gone quiet in the worst way, the kind of silence that watched. Vras scanned the treeline, lipless mouth drawn into a thin grimace. Somewhere beyond the undergrowth, the human was still breathing. Still hunting. 30 meters away, Marcus Vance lay prone beneath thick underbrush, dirt smeared across his face like war paint. His breathing matched the rhythm of the trees, measured, primal. In one hand, he gripped a weapon carved from a melted drone panel. Crude. Sharp. Effective. He didn't need elegance. He needed reminders. He studied Vras through a thermoscope. Unlike his subordinates, the ARCI commander held his composure. Calculating. Slower to unravel. But unravel he would. Marcus had time. And patience. He whispered to himself, the words ghosting into the cold air. One left to carry the story home. By noon, Vras had erected an emergency stasis dome, a last-ditch defense used only when planetary retreat became impossible. The dome shimmered in octagonal segments, its protective energy casting a soft hum that barely masked the undercurrent of fear leaking from the commander's posture. Inside, he reviewed sensor logs. The footage was incomplete, filled with static and flickers. One scout's camera had captured a fleeting silhouette, a bipedal form streaking between trees, unnaturally fast. Another recording ended with the scout shrieking in his own language. It's not human. It's something Earth-made. Vras clenched his jaw. No, it is human, he muttered aloud. That's the problem. The ARCI had long dismissed Earth as a backwater planet, its native species volatile and barely functional. But whispers from the frontier told darker tales, stories of humans surviving biological hells, overwhelming advanced species through instinct, emotion, and chaos. The galaxy called it Terran unpredictability. Vras now understood it meant something simpler. They don't break the way they should. Outside the dome, a faint thud echoed. Then another. A slow, deliberate rhythm, like war drums made of bone. Vras rose slowly, plasma rifle aimed low. He stepped into the canopy's edge. He froze. A fresh corpse, ARCI, nailed upright to a tree trunk. The helmet crushed. Arms outstretched. A crude Terran war banner, stitched from the squad's torn uniforms, hung limply across the body. Above it, scrawled in charcoal. This is not your zoo. Marcus watched the commander stagger back, weapon trembling slightly before it stiffened again. A subtle shift in stance. Not fear. Rage. Good. Let it boil. He needed Vras alive long enough to understand what he had done, what they'd awakened. As dusk approached, Marcus circled the dome's blind spot, using foliage and old storm damage to mask his movements. He set fire to the scout pod's crash site. Not a fire to spread, a fire to speak. The smoke rose high and black. From orbit, it would look like a Terran funeral. Inside the dome, Vras received the heat signature. He didn't investigate. He didn't move. But Marcus knew, the alien understood. He was no longer studying the human. He was being studied. By midnight, Marcus stood atop the canopy ridge, framed by a silver slice of moonlight. Below, Vras exited the dome, alone. He carried a beacon, an ancient peace ritual from his culture, used during interspecies ceasefires. His voice echoed, amplified by the device. Terran, he called out in accented English. I acknowledge your sovereignty. I violated your ground. I regret this mission. Marcus stepped forward. No mask. No armor. Just scars and silence. Vras stared up at him. You are not what they told us. Neither are you, Marcus replied. A pause. Wind rustled pine needles like whispers. What do you want? Vras asked. Marcus descended the slope like a ghost from old Earth folklore. Every step made deliberate, every gesture soaked in consequence. He stopped 3 meters from the alien and tossed something onto the ground, a memory chip, pulled from the scout's helmet cam. Take that. Bring it back. Tell them. Tell them what? Vras asked, voice low. Marcus's answer cut like obsidian. That Earth is awake. He turned and disappeared into the black. Vras knelt slowly, picking up the chip with trembling fingers. Above him, in the trees, the war banner still fluttered. But now, beside it, 2 Arkai helmets swung gently in the wind, suspended from vines, hollow and staring. The forest had claimed its toll. And it had left a message. The cold crept deeper that night, not just into the soil and skin, but into memory. Marcus Vance knelt before an old stump, fingers brushing the initials carved decades ago. R.K. Riley Kane. His squad mate. His brother in arms. One of the first to fall during the Arkai incursion on Halcyon Ridge. And now, aliens camped on his grave. He exhaled, breath misting. A rare thing burned in his chest. Not rage. Regret. You deserve better, brother. But they'll know your name now. He pressed his forehead against the bark, then rose with silent resolve. The forest had taken shape around him, a living weapon molded by patience and grief. The final reckoning would not be distant. A kilometer away, Commander Vras paced inside his dome, palms trembling beneath synthetic gloves. He had replayed the footage Marcus left behind 27 times. Each frame etched the same unsettling truth. This wasn't a wild man. This wasn't a rogue soldier. This was a doctrine in flesh. He could no longer dismiss it. Earth's silence wasn't primitive ignorance, it was intentional. The Terrans had become myth not because they vanished from the galactic stage, but because they let the galaxy forget, until now. Suddenly, static burst across his console. A new signal, encrypted, pulsing in Arkai code. Reinforcements? He answered instantly. This is Vras. I need evac. 1 survivor. Hostile contact confirmed. Terran active. Silence. Then a voice, deeper, slower. Negative. Your mission shifts. Vras froze. Protocol mandates retreat in critical loss scenarios. Not this time. Command authorized her 9 engagement. His blood chilled. You're sending. The Huntmaster has arrived. Stay alive until then. The transmission ended. Above the canopy, a sleek shadow split the clouds, a stealth cruiser descending without sound, matte black and shaped like a spear. No insignias. No lights. Just cold intent. Inside its belly stood a figure wrapped in shifting armor, face obscured behind a mask forged from null steel. No speech. No heartbeat visible. Only a singular designation, Unit D-93. The Huntmaster had no name. Only missions. Marcus spotted the cruiser before it cloaked, its outlines shimmering above the pines. He understood immediately. They weren't calling off the expedition. They were escalating it. He adjusted the strap on his pack, checked the tension on his bowstring, and whispered, Good. Send more. He disappeared into the trees, already planning the next strike. The Huntmaster moved with terrifying precision. Where the Arkai were elegant but fallible, it was flawless in function. It didn't hunt by heat or motion, it tracked intent. Every shift in the air, every displaced leaf, was a pattern. At 0300 hours, it found Marcus's trail. At 0315, it found 3 traps laid just for it. All 3 failed. At 0327, it found blood. Not Marcus's. Vras. Pinned to a fallen tree was the commander, unconscious but breathing. His armor shredded, pulse weak. A recording device lay beside him, blinking. The Huntmaster activated it. Marcus's voice echoed low and calm. You want a test? Here I am. But he's not your prey. I am. A beat. If you're brave enough to come alone, follow the trail. The device shut off. The Huntmaster lifted its head slowly and walked into the wild. At dawn, fog rolled thick over the high ridges. Trees dripped condensation like sweat. Birds were silent. Every animal had fled. Marcus stood in a clearing ringed by carved stone totems, old war relics from a Terran resistance group that once fought here. He knelt and drew a blade across his palm, letting blood drip into the soil. Not ritual. Bait. He rose, every muscle steady. Behind him, no sound, yet he felt it. Presence. Movement without motion. The Huntmaster emerged from the mist like a hallucination. It didn't raise a weapon. Neither did Marcus. They simply stared. Then Marcus spoke. You know what happened here, don't you? No answer. You think you're a hunter. But you came to my forest. My home. My graveyard. The Huntmaster tilted its head slightly. Then it struck. Faster than a blink, it lunged, claws sweeping in a blur. Marcus ducked, rolled, drew a torch and ignited a blast trap mid-spin. The air exploded with light and heat, not to kill, but to disorient. He sprinted for cover, weaving through the trees. The Huntmaster followed without hesitation, each stride silent, machine perfect. Marcus led it deeper, through corridors of thorns, narrow ravines, across a half-frozen stream. At each checkpoint, he triggered a countermeasure: acidic moss bursts, sonic shatter charges, falling logs rigged with wire. Still it came. Still it learned. Adapting. Bleeding from the leg, breathing sharp, Marcus reached a stone altar deep in the grove. Atop it, a final weapon, a relic from the First Archi War. Old tech, banned by the treaty. Untraceable. He activated it. The device hummed. The Huntmaster stepped into the clearing. And stopped. Its systems recognized the energy spike. Pre-accord weaponry. Antimatter destabilizer. Range 5 meters. Kill zone. Marcus smiled, voice rough. We bury our ghosts here. I think it's time we had yours. The Huntmaster leapt anyway. And Marcus detonated it. The forest smoldered in silence. The blast had uprooted half the clearing. Trees stood charred and half-felled, their bark seared black by a shockwave that never made a sound, a weapon too old to be remembered, too brutal to be replicated. At the center of the crater, Marcus Vance rose. His coat was in tatters. Blood streaked his brow. A jagged burn ran from collarbone to shoulder, pulsing beneath raw skin, but he was breathing. Alive. The Huntmaster, by contrast, lay in fragments, mask cracked, limbs twisted in unnatural angles, inner circuitry hissing as if it still resisted death itself. Marcus limped toward the wreckage. He knelt beside the remains, eyes focused, not victorious, reflective. You should have stayed in the stars. He picked up the broken null steel mask and turned it in his hands. There was no face behind it, only wiring, a hollow cavity where identity should have lived. No name. No voice. Just obedience. By midday, Marcus had dragged the body back through the woods. Not out of spite. Symbolism mattered. He needed the galaxy to see. To understand. He passed over the graves of his old unit, each marked only by initials carved into the trunks of ancient trees. Each one silent. Watching. And when he reached the high ridge, where wind moved like breath between stone and pine, he built a monument. Not of marble, but of truth. The Huntmaster's mask was mounted to the bark of an old birch. Below it, 3 Archi helmets hung from twisted rope, each one gutted, lined, hollowed. He painted no words. The silence spoke enough. On the third day, a Terran patrol drone arrived, humming low through the valley. It scanned the wreckage, pausing over the remains of the cruiser, the destroyed dome, and the ritual display Marcus had left in the trees. The drone hovered, then dipped, submitting to his presence. A voice came through. Operative Vance. You are in violation of the Treaty of Celestial Non-Aggression. He didn't flinch. They came first. Unannounced. Armed. Pause. Confirm. All alien presence neutralized? Marcus stepped into view, face gaunt but steady. They're not just neutralized. They're remembered. The drone hesitated, then dropped a sealed canister. Inside, a communication module and a medical stim. Upload your debrief. Central Command wants full footage. They'll get more than footage, Marcus muttered. They'll get a warning. That night, a galactic broadcast echoed across secure networks, unauthorized, unstoppable. It interrupted NAV feeds, entertainment streams, and even government sessions. One video, stitched from Marcus's bodycam and drone footage, played across 10,000 worlds. Begin transmission. A helmet swings from a tree. Below it, a Terran kneels beside a grave. His voice, calm, unapologetic, rumbles through every corner of space. You think Earth is quiet because we're afraid. Because we forgot how to fight. Cut to the Hunt Master's shattered faceplate. But you were never the threat. We were. You just gave us a reason to remember. A burned Archi insignia dissolves in fire. Let this be your lesson. We don't need fleets. We don't need diplomacy. We need trees, soil, silence, and the will to bury you in both. End transmission. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session within the hour. Representatives from 60 species bickered over legality, restraint, retaliation. The footage played again and again in silence behind them. No one spoke during the final frame. Because in that still shot, frozen in eerie stillness, the helmets swayed. And it felt like the forest itself was breathing. Vrass woke in a decontamination chamber, bandaged, tethered to a surgical gurney aboard a neutral medical vessel. He didn't speak for 2 days. When the Inquisitors arrived, cloaked in diplomatic chains and draped in silence, he offered no resistance. Only one sentence. We trespassed on the wrong myth. Meanwhile, Marcus stood at the base of the ridge, gazing west as light broke through the mist. He no longer carried the rifle. No armor. No mask. He carried something heavier, clarity. He reached down and pressed a final memory chip into the dirt, letting the roots take it. Not for command. Not for history. For Earth. This is our story now, he whispered. No more observers. From behind, wind stirred the trees. No birdsong. No footsteps. Still, he turned. An elk stood at the forest's edge, watching. Unmoving. Unafraid. Marcus smiled. They always know. He walked away, deeper into the pines. And in the trees above, 4 skulls swung quietly from their cords. Not in anger, but in reminder. That Earth may be silent, but it is never asleep.